Welcome to Parker Media Productions. Quick question, which one of these is the safe one? Bitcoin's the one everyone calls digital gold. 19 years, no successful hack of the core network, more computing power securing it than anything else humans have ever built. XRP is the one people call just a bank coin. Fast, cheap, and depending who you ask, not even that decentralized. So here's the stat that should stop you. According to on-chain analysis published this year, something like a third of all Bitcoin in circulation sits in wallets that are already more exposed to a future quantum computer attack than XRP's supply is. Not might be. Already are. That doesn't mean Bitcoin is insecure. It doesn't mean XRP wins. It means more secure isn't one number. It's a bunch of different questions, and Bitcoin and XRP answer them in totally different ways. That's what we're actually digging into today. No price talk, no should you buy this. Just how each of these networks defends itself, where each one is genuinely exposed, and what that means for how you personally secure whichever one you hold. Start with the basics, because everything later in this video builds on this. Bitcoin secures itself through proof of work. Miners around the world burn electricity racing to solve a math puzzle, and whoever wins gets to add the next block. To rewrite Bitcoin's history, to fake a transaction that already happened, you'd need to outcompute basically the entire rest of the network, forever, in public, while everyone's watching. Bitcoin's total hash rate has been sitting north of 900 exahashes per second this year, after briefly topping 1,000 EHS earlier in 2026. That's an almost incomprehensible amount of raw computation pointed at one job. Making Bitcoin's history permanent. That's the whole security model. Brute force, at a scale nobody can realistically match. XRP Ledger does this completely differently. There's no mining at all. Instead, a set of independent validators run something called the Ripple Protocol Consensus Algorithm, RPCA for short. Those validators compare notes on which transactions are valid, and when enough of them agree, that block is final. No puzzle solving, no energy race. The trade-off for skipping all that computation is speed. XRPL settles transactions in 3 to 5 seconds, versus roughly 10 minutes per Bitcoin block. Different design goal entirely. XRPL was built for fast, cheap settlement. Bitcoin was built to be as hard as physically possible to rewrite. Neither of these is the secure design, and the other, the insecure design. They're two different bets on how you make a ledger trustworthy. One through raw computational cost, one through validator agreement. Keep that in mind, because it matters a lot once we get to quantum computing. Theory's one thing, what's actually happened is another. Bitcoin has gone down exactly twice in its entire history. Once in 2010, a bug let someone mint billions of fake Bitcoins in a single block, fixed within about 8.5 hours. Once in 2013, a software version mismatch split the network into two competing chains for around 6.5 hours before it was resolved. Add those together, and Bitcoin has roughly 888 minutes, a little under 15 hours, of documented downtime, out of more than a decade and a half of uninterrupted operations since. XRP Ledger's documented downtime is lower, around 74 minutes total, spread across a handful of smaller incidents, including a roughly hour-long block production halt in early 2025 that resolved itself without funds ever being at risk. I want to be careful here, because it's easy to turn fewer outage minutes into therefore safer, and that's not really a fair read. XRPL is a younger network with a smaller, more tightly coordinated validator set, which naturally makes it easier to keep uptime high. Bitcoin's incidents both happened in its very early experimental years, and it's now gone over a decade without a single one. That's an enormous, hard-won track record in its own right. Different histories, different design philosophies. Don't let this section convince you either network has won. It's one data point, not the whole picture. This is the part of the video that's actually new, so let's be precise about it. No quantum computer that exists today, or that will exist for the foreseeable future, can break Bitcoin's or XRP's cryptography. This is a forward-looking risk, not an active one. Keep that in your head through this whole section. Here's the mechanism. When you send crypto from an address, The transaction reveals your public key, the mathematical counterpart to your private key. Right now, deriving a private key from a public key is computationally impossible. A sufficiently powerful quantum computer, if one is ever built, could theoretically do that math. So the actual question isn't, is Bitcoin quantum proof, or is XRP quantum proof? It's how much of each network's supply currently has its public key already sitting out in the open, waiting. And this is where the numbers get interesting. Analysis from ARK Invest and Unchained, published in March of this year, estimates that roughly 35% of Bitcoin's total supply, somewhere around 7 million coins, sits in addresses with exposed public keys. That includes old Satoshi-era coins from Bitcoin's earliest days that have never moved, plus more recent addresses that got reused. On the XRP side, a validator-run audit that circulated in April found something like 0.03% of XRP's circulating supply, around 21 million XRP, sitting in old dormant accounts with exposed keys. Now, and this matters for keeping this section honest, those two numbers aren't measuring quite the same thing. The XRP figure is specifically the dormant, effectively stuck exposure. Accounts nobody's touched in years, that can't easily move funds even if they wanted to. Most of XRP's actively used supply also has exposed keys once it's transacted. It's just not stuck, because the account holder is still around to act. Bitcoin's 35% figure blends both categories together. Old lost or Satoshi-era coins that can never move, and reused addresses belonging to active holders who absolutely could migrate their funds if they chose to. So the honest comparison isn't XRP is basically immune, and Bitcoin is a third exposed. It's that XRP has almost no unrecoverable exposure, while Bitcoin's unrecoverable slice, mostly old P2PK addresses, is estimated at somewhere around 8% of supply on its own, with the rest theoretically fixable by holders who are still around to move their coins. Where the two networks really diverge is what happens next. Ripple published a formal 4-phase roadmap in April 2026, aimed at making XRPL fully quantum resistant by 2028. It includes active testing of quantum-resistant signature schemes with a research partner, a planned rollout that runs new cryptography alongside the old system rather than replacing it overnight, and an emergency quantum day contingency plan that would let holders prove ownership and migrate funds even in a worst-case scenario. XRPL also already has a feature called key rotation baked into the protocol. It lets you swap out the keys securing your account without moving your funds to a new address at all. Bitcoin doesn't have anything like that formalized yet. There are early community proposals floating around for quantum-resistant address types, but nothing close to a funded, phased, dated roadmap the way Ripple has published one. That's not a knock on Bitcoin's current security. Again, nothing here is breakable today. It's a genuine gap in forward planning that's worth knowing about if quantum computing timelines end up moving faster than expected. So practically, what do you actually do with any of this? If you're holding Bitcoin, none of this changes the fundamentals we've covered in past videos. Cold storage, still the standard. Don't reuse addresses. Every time you spend from the same address twice, you're exposing that public key again for no reason. And if you're sitting on a long-term holding, you don't plan to touch for years, understand that leaving it in an address that's never been used keeps your public key hidden entirely. That's actually one of the strongest protections you have against this specific risk, and it costs you nothing to just not spend from it. If you're holding XRP, there's a specific tool most holders don't know they have. Key rotation. You can generate a new signing key and update your account to use it, without moving a single token to a new address. If you're at all concerned about a key you've used getting stale or exposed, that's a real, available option, not a theoretical future feature. I do want to put the centralization critique on the table plainly, because it's the fair counterweight to everything XRP has going for it in this video. Ripple Labs, the company, still controls something like 40% of total XRP supply through escrow and operational wallets. That's a legitimate, ongoing decentralization concern. A network where one company holds that much of the supply carries a different kind of risk than Bitcoin's much more distributed miner base, even if Ripple's direct control over the validator set itself has actually shrunk over the years. Bitcoin's security model doesn't have anything comparable. Nobody owns 40% of the hash rate, and nobody could buy their way into that kind of influence overnight. That's a real point in Bitcoin's favor that the quantum conversation doesn't erase. So, which one's actually more secure? Honestly, wrong question. Bitcoin wins on proven, battle-tested decentralization. Nobody controls it, and 19 years of history backs that up. XRP Ledger wins on operational uptime, and right now it's meaningfully ahead on quantum preparedness, both in what's already built into the protocol and in the fact that there's an actual dated plan for what comes next. Which of those matters more to you depends on your time horizon and what you're actually worried about. If your concern is, can any single entity ever control this network? Bitcoin's answer is stronger. If your concern is there a credible plan for the next decade of cryptographic threats? XRP's answer, today, is more concrete. Both of those are legitimate things to care about. Neither one makes the other network unsafe to hold. If you want the deeper walkthrough on any of the habits I mentioned, cold storage setup, avoiding address reuse, safe signing, those videos are linked below. And next week, on July 10th, we're covering something a lot more immediate. How deepfake scams are actually targeting crypto holders right now. That one's worth watching. See you then. Thanks for watching. Stay secure out there.